Okay, we're live, but now we need to get the mic and the audio. I thought I saw live. It is. It's okay. We are. All right. All right. Okay, and then let me go into presenter mode. You're seeing slides, but it's not in presenter. Now it's in presenter mode. Beautiful. All right. Now I need to mic myself up, right? Okay. Okay. Of course, I would choose a day when I'm wearing something that has no pockets, no belt. But see, the key here is it's got a low back. And that's where I hide the mic. Good, that's right. Not that. But let me make sure the mic shouldn't be too high. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you. Just hit. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. It's 11 o'clock, so I know that I am the only person standing between you and lunch. That's always a challenging place to be. But so too, a mobile content strategy. So I hope that this will be worth waiting another hour for lunch. So my name is Christina Inge. I'm one of the organizers. Digital agency that does work in higher ed, including designing learning management systems and mobile learning systems, as well as conventional web design and digital marketing strategies. However, are through hard-won experience. They have a responsive site, so it should all look great on mobile. How many of you still know what responsive is, and that's what I didn't tell you that? That's a very common misconception, is that you build a responsive site and that honestly the code is going to take care of everything. Your CSS is going to take care of everything. You've got beautiful media queries, but people don't stop to think, well, what is the media that you're presenting? You can query all you want, but the underlying content has to be structured in such a way that it's mobile friendly. And so we still see a lot of websites where people can't never updated, or the content itself is just simply not mobile friendly. For instance, we are working with some online learning, and by the way, the majority of students now expect to be able to take their classes at least partly from their phone, and you've got 1-hour videos. Who's going to watch a 1-hour video on their data plan on the T? Nobody. Who's going to watch a 1-hour webinar about how wonderful your products are on their data plan on the T? And then you're going to archive it, and it's going to be on your website, and you wonder why people aren't watching it. Well, it's a 1-hour webinar. Are unconvinced, but you guys look convinced. So feel free to take these slides and use them whenever you need them. I slaved away for like 10 minutes on them. So feel free to use these whenever you need to prove that mobile is growing. And by the way, it stops at 2015 on this particular ComScore data. Any recent data, it's honestly leveled off. This is pretty much the growth of mobile. But today what we're going to talk about is, well, we just covered the data on mobile consumers. I'm not going to go into too much of that. How to create a mobile content strategy. In other words, how to make your content work on mobile. Not your design, your content. Local strategies for building mobile first content. So once your client has seen the light of day and realizes that most of their visitors are on mobile, hopefully moving forward, any new content you generate will be mobile friendly first and foremost. And then some tactical ideas for types, which again, this is meant to be something of a crib sheet. So if you are doing that, however, bear in mind is that they're doing something for lead generation and acquisition, and this is something that we do with our companies. We are also 34% of email subscribers, if they're sending out an email. People under 35. 90% of B2B researchers use search specifically to make business decisions, and 42% of them are using mobile search to perform business decision making. Of business decision makers. Now, if local SEO is your client strategy, it is urgent to have a mobile content strategy. Again, not just a responsive site, but 61% of millennials use social media to determine whether. Business, you're missing out not only on foot traffic, but word of mouth as well. Because I think most clients understand that in order to get the mobile foot traffic, in other words, if someone's walking financial district ice cream parlor. However, if they're a business that doesn't really rely on foot traffic, they might not think of local SEO as important because they think, oh, well, we get all of our business from word of mouth. But word of mouth is mobile. Word of mouth is people texting each other, sharing things on social media, and that's not going to work if you don't have a mobile content strategy. Despite all of this data, 58% of companies interviewed have a dedicated mobile marketing team, which means the vast majority are shoehorning mobile into just marketing or digital. However, 72% of all digital ad spending by 2019, if we're all still here in 2019, will be mobile. So if you don't have a dedicated mobile content strategy and hopefully a dedicated mobile content team with your client, you are probably coming up with the wrong answer to this question. Should your content strategy be mobile first? What do you think the answer to that is? Yes. So Mary Meeker, who is real, I hate to use the term thought leader, but she really is a very significant thought leader in digital marketing, says that the shift from using the internet a few times a day to long term. Now, what does that mean for the mobile web? You know that at least half of your content is consumed on mobile. To fill out again with your thumbs that has 17 different fields, including a bunch of marketing for a good 15 years just does not work. And the standard B2B conversion form is extremely non-mobile friendly. It was very desktop friendly because asking people to qualify themselves as a lead. This is why you have to design your content mobile first. That is just one. If you're designing online learning, there's probably a lot of multiple choices. Really reimagine that because people are hitting the wrong answer, can't read the screen, long questions, long answers. Generating a ton of content, which has worked fine for them for a very long time. And if you're dealing with a company that's been around for a while or with veteran workers, it's already the second iteration of how they've had to do their job. So if you're dealing with the people's pictures with a red pen, and now they have learned how to. It's completely out of date, and it's going to come out. So you have to start building mobile first because it's important to lay down those best practices so that people start generating forms and content that works mobile. There's other very logical reasons why to build mobile. Why you should build mobile first. One is than it is to take the 55-word question and the 17-word answers and edit them down in a way that's not. Go through 17 revisions of editing out certain words before everyone's happy. Also, mobile user experience is transitioning to the desktop because more and more people are buying touchscreen laptop devices. So the navigation patterns that are now thought of as more and more people are having the same experience on their desktop, which causes them to interact with content differently, which means if you work mobile first, you're future-proofing your evergreen content. It also creates discipline and creativity around the UX of content. So what do I mean by that? I have a touchscreen laptop, not this one. We have touch screens of every device that I'm near because it has become a reflective action. Using the touchpad or mousing over to click on particular things of interest It's a tactile experience, and I'm more likely to interact with different parts of visual content by attempting to click on every single piece, because it's just human nature to want to do that with your fingers as you're interacting with an interesting piece of content. That means that instead of putting up a static infographic, for instance, on your site, you could make every piece interactive, because people on touch screens are much more likely to click for more information on an image that appeals to them than people on desktops. Their content on tablets as well, especially long-form content. There's still going to be that person who prints out a PDF, highlights it with a yellow marker, and then attempts to fax it back to you. However, there's fewer and fewer of those people, so even long-form content is mobile in the sense that people are using their mobile devices for it. So here's a strategy that has worked for us. Because and the reason for that is that e-learning, online learning design, has actually really outstripped a lot of so-called marketing content. All of this is driven by the students. It's also driven by the fact that a lot of educational institutions are only now getting to a lot of it's being built mobile first. So, for instance, a lot of times I now build content for our website using a tool called Articulate. It's everything. Mhm. It does. How about yourself, sir? Okay, and that's the first sort of gateway that people use with the Articulate suite. It is a suite, there's a bunch of other tools with it, and even if you don't end up adopting it for your organization, I strongly suggest playing around. That white paper that's 27 pages. Here's an example of something that you can do. I could even try to do a couple of things to make it more interactive, like recording a brief webinar. In easy for the end user to understand terms. They then give them a couple of options. In by keeping the data secure on this theoretical desktop, and all of the navigation, as you can see, it's super simple, it's bright colors, it's mobile friendly, and the knowledge is chunked into very small pieces. So this is what you can borrow from e-learning that I have found is really great for mobile Only a few seconds apiece. So if you look at this, here's a tiny micro moment that's a teachable moment for someone to learn more about cybersecurity. Have you that is a security risk because people can be hacked by leaving their speakers or their camera on. One question, and then if they have left their speakers on, and they're shown why is this a threat and what they can do about it. It's a micro moment. It's about 30 seconds. Aware content. Also think about how, as you break down your content, how you can provide visual cues. People are extremely visual regardless of the medium, but on mobile devices, they only pay attention to anything for a few brief seconds. Guide people's eye in particular directions very quickly. Sometimes when we make content quote unquote responsive, all we're doing is trying to headers are not a sufficient visual cue when people are tired, distracted. Don't forget they're using these devices in highly distracted environments. We want to go back to visual cues like this, which are non-headers, but buttons that provide simple activities for people. Also provide multiple paths. This is where you we're gone with the wind. Want their sacred content broken up into not only small chunks, which you can still win that argument is that people will digest it better in small chunks. Working with someone who's teaching an online history course, and you tell them people need multiple paths. Standing independently, and you need to give people multiple navigation paths among those different pieces of content. sort of hub and spoke or bento box navigation to give people multiple options of navigating through your content. Make those pieces of content very small. People are going to have a better experience with it on the device. How often do we, for instance, on mobile, just sit down and link to our time in order? We don't, right? That's how people expect to learn about the Civil War or learn about your mobile conferencing offerings. It's all the same mindset when they approach mobile content. You also want to jump among formats. You want to vary the medium per chunk. Need to go through not only your slides, but all of the readings. Everyone needs different information, so if you've got a video in one place, make sure you have a gamification element in another, and information per chunk. And also, if you have the budget, make sure that the same information is presented in multiple formats. Don't get redundant, and again, in a business website, you probably can't have a white paper turned into marketers are always working with a very small budget. So if you have post those, do a webinar, do a couple of YouTube videos. And they think that they're just getting the great deal for their money, which they are. But it's not just about the budget, because it's also presenting people with multiple formats through which to get information. And so after this one section, I want to open it up to some discussion with you guys, but I just can't stress enough the SEO advantages of doing this. Has anyone noticed that a site that you are responsible for the ongoing maintenance for has fluctuated a lot recently in Google search results? And it's mysterious, right? Like, why are we fluctuating, or why are our competitors outstripping us when we're doing the same thing and they have a smaller budget than we do? Well, Google is working very hard against spam. And the result of that is, of course, usually a little bit of fluctuation in your search results, especially as they roll out new, more mobile and friendly algorithms. Earlier this year, Google rolled out a new iteration of its algorithm that makes your mobile site canonical, whether you've declared it to be that or not. So at this point, if your mobile content is not what's optimized for SEO, you've lost all of your SEO gains. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but gradually you're going to lose it, because mobile is now the preferred site that's going to be indexed. Hopefully, at this point, again, if you've got a responsive site, what this means is that the site that is visible to a person on a mobile device, that's the content that's shown. If you're hiding stuff and it's only visible on desktop, you're not getting the SEO results of that anymore, or it's getting less and less. So when you start chunking content, you are going to have more of your site visible to mobile users, but it's also going to give you more benefits in the mobile first world of SEO. It's also going to give you greater visibility. Is everything okay? Okay. So give me a search that's extremely general, like shoes or coffee. Okay, let's go with shoes. I answered my own question. We might need coffee. Okay. So let me. So if you're looking for Ethernet cables, you're going to type in Ethernet cables, and there's no bit won't fill on that. But for other products and services, there is a very specific wall here. So in other words, SEO. So that's the wrong here. What happens when you break your content for a mobile content strategy into small, easily discoverable, easily digestible, and easily shareable pieces is that usually those is ready to take whatever action you need them to take, whether it's buy from you or engage with you. So when you break down your content, that tends to be more specific, and Google loves more specific content. You're going to rank higher on that kind of thing. And searchers who actually want what you're selling will obviously be more easily drawn to your site. Who here is using Google Analytics to determine what kind of content on your site is appealing to your users? Okay, excellent. Who wants to share an example of what you found in your analytics that you feel comfortable sharing? Okay, go ahead. Excellent. Yours nodding as well. Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot of you guys are such cool. To try to find reasons for change that want to. So we find what products are getting popular with SEO tracking and product tracking to then help them go out and search for. So what ELearning Gateway 108 degrees are doing is an excellent example of why mobile content first helps you with your analytics. So if your client didn't have both product and geo information broken out, again, you would not be able to tell. So the more you can break down your content, the more you're going to be able to measure people's intent on your site. Spend maybe 20 minutes on it. And when you're working with accreditation bodies, you have to analytics. The next part was most either challenging or difficult. But let's say you've got a video about resonance. Because it's broken out content. to go back to a business example, 3 minutes on a page about financial solutions for small businesses is very different from the same amount of time on socially responsible 401ks for SMBs. It's much more specific, a lot more about what your clients and customers want from you. So how do you get your content ready for mobile? Well, step one is measure like crazy. Before you start doing anything, set a baseline and take the following measurement. Look at time on page by device, but don't make any assumptions. In other words, if someone is spending 2 minutes on a page on their desktop and 3 minutes on the desktop behavior and the mobile behavior that's significant enough to investigate. You then need to use other UX measures and traditional UX testing to determine whether people like that content or find it frustrating. Then look at content types by device, because in the business of testing ball bearings find exciting. We can only talk about general things. So look at content types by device, and perhaps for your audience, they really want to download that 17-page PDF on determining causes of failure in ball bearings and get that on their iPad on their way into work. That's how you get their colleagues. You won't know that though until you've tested. On the other hand, your common sense is true, and nobody is watching that hour-and-a-half long webinar on a phone on their data plan on the team. You have Once you've done that, you can start breaking content that you know is problematic into effective chunks and then testing how well people interact with it in the future. So in other words, if that 1 hour or even 20-minute video that leads to a call to action is not leading to any conversions, if you break it down to 7 minutes and 3 minutes, run an A/B test. And see whether those conversions lead to sales and what the lifetime customer value is, even if you only have a little bit of data of the people who convert from the and conduct multiple tests if you're dealing with a real bear of a site that has a large amount of content techniques currently. So use traditional UX testing techniques, but also use after you start using techniques, I particularly like a good cognitive walkthrough of content that's particularly complex to see if people are getting the message from it that they need. Task analysis, but also use, like I said before, A/B and multivariate testing to see whether the content your users find highly usable and easy to interact with is also what is making them take the action that you need. This applies both in commerce and in learning. So in other words, if students find, this is actually something that's been studied since before the days of the web, you can make it too easy to learn something, which makes it forgettable. Students who learn something in slightly stressful situations, like a room that's a little too cold here at MIT, actually remember better. People do better. You're just answering really simple questions and going boom, boom, boom. You can easily learn a lot of small facts, but you may not be able to form a good cognitive map of the big picture because you have been subjected to absolutely zero friction. Small amounts of friction lead to better learning retention, so don't, I'm not kidding you, don't over optimize the usability if your end goal is to have people learn something. Because if you make it too easy for them, again, this predates the internet. If they're just sitting in too comfortable a room or too comfortable a chair, you won't remember this when the test comes. So optimize using CRO on top of UX. You want are actually happening. So I have a bunch of slides here on different content types. Webinars, white papers, webinars, social media content. But I'm not going to make you sit through all of these slides because the most you're wrestling with to make mobile friendly. Not in terms of style, not in terms of UX, but the content itself. Mobile, and you can try all the stylistic efforts you want. It's still not too warm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like if you had a straight up table, it was literally like here's 200 data points, it was getting down to like city level stuff, and you could filter based on that. So it wasn't like anybody actually saw all of that at the same time. And then if you went to something like a bar chart or something else, it would aggregate it. But yeah, it was a lot of data.
And when you go up to the top of it, take the simplest possible data that everyone would use to aggregate and cut that in half. I'm not kidding. So reduce it to like we already need stuff. That is the really data that we gave them. We're not in the game,
we did have to go with tables on line. Yeah. Okay.
So what is this actually obviously every country I just wanted this course is just incredible. All of it. Because you really all these examples and going back to before the web, because a lot of these kind of really independent media. Look at how he does data visualization. His most famous example he uses is the map of Moscow.
Yeah.
Huge number of data points. Very historical, military historical story. He tells it with maps. And it was a cartographer. It was for example, from the time of the Napoleonic Wars. That's the sort of thing you need. Every data story, no matter how complex, has one unique story. And the top of it should only tell that one major story. It could be the growth of particular metropolitan areas is exponential. That's the only story you're going to tell. All the other stuff is either go to another entirely different part of the site or be like 7 years. So it's the original talk.
Well, I just, as a designer, had those books from Tufta for years before I ever went to his course. I can painfully admit that I never actually read them until I signed up for the course. And I was forced to do it. It was the most worthwhile and influential thing in web design that I've ever I mean, hands down, in terms of, like, it's so applicable, especially the first one. I think it's visual display of quantitative information.
Yep.
Displaying data tables, this thing, like telling those data stories, you can map so much of that directly to what you're doing on the web. It's, you will not regret it.
It's going to change.
You can go to one of them, like quick, you love it, but just like get that one first book,
Yeah.
read that, think about that when you're like trying to map that data story.
Yeah.
That's gold.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you can just go home now and sleep a good. About all four of them, actually. Okay, who has another thorny mobile content question? Yes, sir. Absolutely. In fact, a group of my graduate students actually did a semester-long paper on poorly converting online forms. It's that complex, so don't, you know. Because oftentimes, even so-called mobile applications, or you do a diagnostic test to determine whether people are proficient in material. You can do that with 5 to 10 questions. Example is borrow from the field of adaptive learning, which uses artificial intelligence to give different people different learning paths based on their initial answers and how quickly they're mastering the material. There's a lot of tools that will allow you to build just enough. It's not even really AI. It's really just simple binary rules of if this happens, then this happens, and give people an adaptive form. And honestly, you can do that in constant contact. It's not easy, but you can do that. So adaptivity is the key. Get rid of radio buttons, get rid of check boxes. If you can't style them to be really big, eliminate them entirely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, style it so that people can't make a mess. They still will, but there's always more logic you can apply to a form. Almost always, if you go 2 or 3 passes, you can eliminate more things with logic and make them conditional. Any more mobile content questions? Yes. That's really cutting edge. And yeah, what's the use case? Oh, I see. Local search, that is a really good example where you do need to start thinking about that. There was a recent study, I'm completely blanking on the numbers right now, saying that voice search is going to be a critical factor next year. Like it's going to reach enough critical mass that you have to start optimizing for voice search, especially for things like coffee shops or consumer goods that people can purchase. So I would start thinking about it now, building for it and testing for it. You've got time. Not it's important, but it's not going to ruin your business in most contexts if you don't do it. So start doing it now. But yes, it is important. Yes. Yeah.
Being underground, I would be clicking something. So then good internet access.
You mean like those articles that make you click through every single celebrity who you won't believe how they look now? And we all get lured in at least one. Oh yeah. So that's abusive. Like that is for the ad impressions. And part of the reason actually that those sites are, this is an interesting question that came up in one of my courses. Part of the reason why those sites do take so long to load is not the content, but it's actually all of the tracking scripts from all of the ad publishers. If you look at those pages, half of the weight of that page is tracking. You don't even see that. It's like
But I was sort of mentally, when I was consuming this idea of chunking this stuff, I wasn't actually necessarily putting it to separate pages, but really more from a presentational standpoint. Is that, which were you thinking?
both. So that's what I go to the same case. So if you go back to this slide, I want to make people dizzy. But when I say provide visual cues, that's
Or are you really getting down to tracking each micro interaction to make sure that you know which track?
you can do both. So if you put it around it, so you can track the behaviors on the page. You can also use it. And then you have to decide, am I going to do usability or usability? Because and also comes down to tracking information. So there are trade-offs. I mean, I'll admit there are always going to be. Yes. Google. Penalized. And yeah. And the only argument in favor of that was at one point SEO was another point it was so tax not everything. Sometimes there's a benefit, but it's dangerous. Yeah. Yeah. say build it. Phone. So if you want to go to a terrible mobile site that is actually quite wonderful, the New Yorker is the best example of that. Oh, hands down. Also integrates beautifully with anything that you build in Articulate, and it takes in SCORM objects very well. Okay, so I'm pretty much at time, and I am doing your lunch. So I have time for one more question. Okay, so nobody wants to be the person who asks the question that keeps people from lunch. Thank you very much, everybody. If you have any questions, you can find me at the front desk because I'm one of the organizers, or just tweet at me. Thanks, everybody.